Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's meeting of the Rotary E-Club of Silicon Valley. My name is Cecelia, and I'm the president of this Rotary Club. And thank you for joining us this week. We aim to, every week, bring you an inspirational speaker that shares with us a story related to education, entrepreneurship, innovation, and how all those relate to service to others. This week, we can think of no better person, no better Rotarian, no better member of our E-Club to tell us about all of these topics than Cecelia Babkirk. We have Cecelia who is joining us from Turkey at the moment, but she has been spending the last 7.5 or so months in rural Ethiopia. She is currently serving in the Peace Corps. So today she'll be telling us about her story and her transition into her service with the Peace Corps. So I really look forward to hearing about that. And with that, I'll hand it over to Cecelia. Cecelia, go ahead.
Thank you, Sviatko. I'm happy to be doing this program for all the members of my Rotary Club and those others who choose to look at it at some point when it is up on our club website. Most of you know, and for those that don't, my background, besides 45 years in mortgage finance in the Bay Area, was that I spent about 15 years managing all of the humanitarian grant projects for our Rotary district, which is significant because we do so much of it. Was about 18 months ago, was thinking a lot about retiring and what to do in my retirement. And my original plan A was live in each of 8 places for 3 months each and decide if I liked any of them well enough, whether or not to stay. And then I read an article in a magazine that goes straight to the heart of the baby boomers. It's called International Living, about a woman who retired and went into the Peace Corps. And I said, oh, I do things this way sometimes, but I said, oh, I should think about that, because I didn't do it when I was in my 20s, because I was really came from a working class family and wanted to make money and have a life. But I had kind of forgotten about it along the way. And so I applied. I looked at all the job offering. You can apply for a specific job in a specific location based on your skills. And so I decided to join the Peace Corps' TEFL program, which is done. Now they're expanding it, but there's a special program for it that's done only in Ethiopia, Indonesia, and Ecuador. It was too late to apply for Ecuador, which would have been perfect because I speak Spanish, for heaven's sake. So I applied instead for Ethiopia because the countries in any country in Southeast Asia, I've spent plenty of time there, but Indonesia would have been the other place. So I applied, I was accepted. It took forever to clear their medical requirements and a lot of money besides, but I pursued it and finally got my final clearance about 3 weeks before I flew. And then last June 15th, I came to Ethiopia and began the 3-month training. They call it pre-service training, or PST, and it's rigorous. You learn another language during that time. You learn how to teach, or specifically how the Peace Corps wants you to teach. And it's many hours every day. They put you actually in a host family's home, in a place that's near the capital. Well, the day that we got transferred to our host family's home, there was a coup in the country and the government cut off all communications. So for about a week and a half, no one had phone, internet access, or anything else. It was a little confusing. But we proceeded with our training, and on September 6th, I was formally inducted into the Peace Corps, sworn in, because you are an officer of sorts of the U.S. government when you join the Peace Corps. So if you want to advance to the next slide, by the way, this first slide is a typical Southern nation's home. It's called a sarbet. And the word bet means home. And so these people these days use these either to live in, such as the family who's in the picture, or am I controlling the slides, by the way?
Yes, you can just click on the arrow button on your, yeah, there you
go. Okay, so there we go. Back to the sarbet for a moment. Most families will have one of these or a more modern home that's not modern by our standards. And then this will be used sometimes for actually keeping animals, food storage, kitchen, whatever. So I was sworn in at the U.S. Embassy on September 6th. That's the picture that someone managed to get of me up there, shaking hands with the ambassador. And then I was sent out to a village called Soda, S-O-D-A. So if you go to look for it, you're going to find Sodo, but that's not it. So I'm in a town called Soda. The community is fabulous. Really, they're just so wonderful to me. It's I'm probably the only person in my group, G21, who thinks that their town that they're in is just about nearly perfect. And so in that photo are a number of the teachers, other teachers in the school. To my immediate left, which means you're looking at it, he's on the right, is our Amharic teacher. The person on my right is our vice director, and the person to the right of him is a physics teacher, and there are a sports teacher and a ICT, internet communications or whatever teacher. So, and you can see they had written the welcome signs in my landlord's house in all 3 languages. So I was required to learn Amharic in my training, but each of these areas has different languages because there are 85 different languages in Ethiopia. So depending on where you live, there is also a local language. And this gentleman on my left, his name is Miskanu Molito. He's our physics teacher. He's really quite a young man. I think he's not over 25, but he has been really at my side practically since what I would have done without him there. Anyway, so we were in a little cafe that all the teachers go to in town, just having lunch. We also have other kinds of friends, and that's my vice director on the right-hand side of this picture. And the animals like to come and, eat the hay off the floor, which the owners of the cafe put down, not for the animals, but when there's a major holiday. That's what they do, is they spread some kind of vegetation on their floors. Then this is my land family. We call them land family. My landlord, his wife, my landlady, and their 3 kids, and in their home. And you can see it's very basic, but it's a comfortable place. And they are just wonderful to me as well. They fed me for about the first 3 months until I finally got myself a propane stove, which was hard to get. But anyway, so this is my adopted family while I'm in Ethiopia. And then we have a cow, and the cow lives in the complex in a room down at the far end from mine. And every day they bring her out and walk her out to a field, which is what everyone does there. Everyone has some kind of an animal that grazes. And so this cow is the one that lives in my place, and she walks by my window every day. So I took a picture, what the heck. And then as you look down the corridor there, my door is the second one on the right. And when the Peace Corps asked me if I thought I would mind living in a mud house, or a mud hut maybe is the word they used. I was like, a mud hut, okay. Having visions of I don't know what, but I forgot. I've been in Kenya where they build entire houses out of mud and sticks. And this is a house very similar to that. They're all over East Africa, and certainly all over much of Ethiopia. Anyway, it's a pleasant place. Works out just fine for me. My room is 4 meters by 4 meters, so about 16 by 16. And it's large enough. I'm not there constantly. Like right now, I'm here in Turkey. This is my water apparatus. So water is a big deal. We actually have water. I know that volunteers who have no water source in their town or even anywhere near, and have to do things like go climb down cliffs with a jerry can and bring them back if there is water. So I won't tell you how I came by that 80-liter bucket, but it was like water, too much water showed up on one day and I had it. But the white thing that's sitting on the blue table is actually a water filter, and it's Peace Corps issued. They're quite the thing. So by the time you put the water in one of those big containers and put a water guard product in them and then put them through the 2-stage, industrial type filter that the Peace Corps gives you, it's pretty safe to drink. And then my school that I'm teaching in is called SODA Senior Secondary School. And this year, they had always been just a secondary school, which is grades 9 and 10, but this year, right a week after school started, the WRETA, which is like a school district, said, oh, we're sending you 250. No classrooms, no teachers, no textbooks. Voila, you are getting students. So this is the gate to the school, and this is the classroom block that I teach in. And unlike in most American schools, the teachers actually go from class to class. So I have 3 sections of 11th grade, and I teach in one or another of the 3 rooms that are on the left. And as you can see, they're kind of wide open to the elements, but the block is, and the rooms in it are really quite nice. And so, I mean, as they go, because there are other schools that are made entirely of mud, and they're very dark with dirt floors. And this one was built by some organization, and it houses most of the students throughout the day. School has 808 students, of which more are girls than boys, which I thought seemed unusual. But because in a lot of places in Africa, the girl population is much lower than the boy population. And then adjacent to the school, but part of the school property, is where some local farmers grow wheat, and they actually have a deal with the school where they split the wheat. The school can sell their wheat and make some money, which is almost the only way they get any money. So it was just harvest in late October, and you can see that they mound it up after they cut it off at the ground. The morning that I took this picture, this was like 7:30 in the morning, I almost went out into that field just to get closer, but unbeknownst to me, there was a hyena out there. And about an hour later, I was in my class teaching, and I saw this herd of boys in blue go by, and they were running by, and I had no idea what it was, but I suspected. And sure enough, when they came back, I was like, so what was that? And they said, oh, it was a hyena. And so I said, go get it and bring it back. I want to see it. So anyway, of course, they thought that was hilariously funny, but the hyena went away, of course. So then part of the deal was that the Peace Corps asked the school if they had an extra classroom available that could be used as a model class. So this is my model class. We do not teach in that class. Well, we might eventually, but the class sizes are run upward of 75 to 80 students. And they would fit in a classroom like this, but the idea was for me to use it as sort of a demonstration classroom. I can hold tutorials and makeup tests and teacher English language improvement clubs and student language improvement clubs in there. And we I don't know what they thought I was going to use for furniture, but I've been busy spending my own money to get furniture. So this was what it looked like on the day I started. And this is what it looked like on the last day of the semester, which was about a week and a half ago. And every single wall is covered with paper because especially the first 2 months of teaching, there were no textbooks. So I had to basically put all the lessons on flip charts, which the school, of course, did not have. So I had to go run down to my banking town and get a bunch of flip charts so that I could do that. So I taught from flip charts until early December, when I finally found where we could buy textbooks. And I bought 125 textbooks so that my students would each have one for their class, for their studies. And it has made an enormous difference in just a short period of time over doing everything from flip charts, because when you do it that way, you first of all take the time to write it all down, and then you tack it up on the blackboard, and it takes them 15 minutes to copy them into their exercise book. So you lose almost half the class time. Our class period is 40 minutes. But I managed, and we're behind, but everyone is behind for that reason. So I'm going to be trying to catch those kids up here in the second semester of the year. And then just another photo of the campus of the school so this is a school, and mine is not the only one. If I thought it would sell, I'd write a book called 50 Ways to Prove That You Really Are Not Running a School, or something like that, because the directors find, and it's not always their fault, that there is always an excuse, excuse me, to not hold class. So on this particular day, I was in my class for the first period, and after 15 minutes, they rang the bell. And I was like, what? And so I went and stuck my head out the door, and the vice principal said, oh, we're doing short classes today because we're going to stop at 10 and have a presentation on HIV/AIDS by the local community health center. And so this is one of the joys of teaching in southern Ethiopia, which is like, surprise, you're not really teaching today. Oh, surprise, we're not really open today. Oh, surprise, it's raining and they're supposed to be harvesting, so we're closing the school so that the kids can go help their families with the harvest. It's like one thing after another. And so anyway, and then, so this was on the very last day of the semester, my model classroom. Now I have chairs, which I acquired. I have a few shelves, and I have students that like me. Most of these girls would not even look at me at the beginning of the year because they are so afraid that I will talk to them and they may have to speak, and they just don't have the confidence. And now they all, as you can see, come to my room and spend time with me. So that makes I feel like I've actually accomplished something, even though I'm not sure what it is. And then there's how we get around. So there are several modes of transportation, and this is actually in what we call our hub town. Hub town really means a town where you can go do banking and buy a few things and like get away from your extremely rural area. It's really not a place that I like to go very well, but I find I spend more time there than I want to. And so you can see there are a couple modes of transportation right in this one picture. On the far left is what we call an Isuzu bus, which is a great big Isuzu truck with an open back that people can stand up in. I'm not allowed to ride in those. Peace Corps has all kinds of rules. And then there's we call them bajaj, which is like a tuk-tuk would be in Southeast Asia and other places. And that motorbike there that's behind on those either. And to the very back behind the motorbike is what we call a line taxi. And actually, there is a line taxi. And they actually put 20 riders into an 11-passenger minivan and throw anything that you're bringing on top. And I mean, the big buses, a lot of people think are death traps, but really these minivans, I'm sure, are death traps. But certain places that you go, that's the only way to get around. And then we have the big boys, which is these big buses, and they can be terrifying on really bad roads like we have up there. And this is actually in the bus station, which is always quite chaotic. But I have found, initially I was terrified by the buses and riding the buses, but I've now, for a lot of reasons, every time you get on one, it's an adventure of some sort or another. And then, yes, those big buses use this road. This is the only road that goes into my village, and that is passable by a motor vehicle. There are some other roads where you can take a motorbike, but and this, of course, was the height of rainy season, and that mud, those holes are 3-4 feet deep, and the mud is a good foot deep. And usually coming the other direction, we have to get out, and the boys push the bus up the hill, and the rest of us go walk up the hill to catch it when it gets to the top. So, you know, that's quite an adventure all the time. So I think with that, I want to thank you all. If you have any questions, now would be a good time to ask.
Awesome. Wow. Very cool. Thanks so much. There you go.
Well, I was a little late.
A little late. Thanks so much for all the wonderful pictures and the great stories there, Cecelia. What I'd like to do is I'd like to introduce the other folks that we have on the call here. So we have our charter president, Rushton. So Rushton, just wave. There you go. We have Shags, our in-house paella master. And then we also have Suzanne, who's joined us today as well. All right, awesome. Yeah, I think that's everybody. So, so with that, let's start with any questions. Do any of you have questions for Cecelia? Okay, go ahead, Rushton.
So wildly cool stuff, Cecelia. You are a hero.
Thank you.
Tell me how other members of the Peace Corps contingent in Ethiopia are encountering things like what's been your impression of your team there? I mean, what have you learned from them and their different experiences?
Well, so we just finished a week-long meeting that, among other things, was called a community of practice, where we share what's going on in our schools. And because we're scattered all over the country, I mean, we're in 4 different regions, and those regions can be very different from each other. So in Amhara, which is near the capital, they are much, and up in Tigray, which is in the far north, they are much, much better organized in their school system than the schools that are in Oromia and the south, and in particular in the south. So all of us in the south, they told us to expect some of the things that we've had when we were in training, but I think you don't really believe it until you are in your school and they do things like stop classes at 10 o'clock without telling you, or change the schedule. So in my school, we teach 1 week in the mornings and 1 week in the afternoon for a variety of reasons. And this drives me crazy because it's very hard to have extracurricular kinds of learning activities in my model classroom. And so, because the schedule just, people are like, do I come in the morning? Do I come in the afternoon or whatever? Everyone else, almost everyone else in the South is having the same kind of issues. And I did find out as a result of this meeting that one of my cohort has a school that only flip-flops the schedule once a month. So I right away got on the phone with my vice director and said, can we please do this beginning the second semester? Because I'm just not getting things done and I don't think it's helping the students, and the other teachers I know are not happy. So maybe we could all be a little happier if we would do it on an alternating month basis instead of an alternating week basis. But otherwise, we all find the same thing. We have challenges with our site, some more than others. It's not like living in America, for sure. And just dealing with the everyday vagaries of life, getting to, well, no electricity about, at least half the time, very little connectivity. That's probably the biggest challenge. I think most of us could do with solar lanterns and no electricity, but connectivity is a big issue for all of us. I send out updates, I think most of you know, about once a month, and those updates, like I'm late getting the latest one out because now that I'm finally in Turkey, I can get it done. Because I have to write them on my laptop, they're too long to write on my phone. And then by the time I get down to my banking town, I have to take the laptop with me, which means it's hard to do grocery shopping down, carrying too much stuff. We all have those challenges. And people here just don't realize all the things that we have, every day, 24/7, that we would really miss if we were not in the US or in Turkey. I mean, we have 24/7 everything here too. So it's challenging in many ways. It's not that physically hard, but it is just, for me, finding a propane stove so I would not have to burn kerosene or charcoal. I just refused to do either one of those. It took me 3 months and an accidental meeting with an NGO and to finally get a kerosene stove. So now I'm cooking. But then my local market, they really only sell onions, garlic, sometimes potatoes, what they call gomen, which is kind of like kale. It's a cross between spinach and kale. And inset, which is a sort of a starchy, it's the pulp of a root of a tree that we call a false banana. So it looks like a banana tree, but it's not banana. It doesn't have bananas. And they pound the pulp of that, the root of it, and then make the resulting product of it into various things, all of which get really tiresome 3 meals a day, 7 days a week. And so food variety is a challenge for all of us in my area, for sure. Others have it a little better. And in Amhara, they actually get strawberries and apples and things like that. But educationally, it's the same pretty much through much of the country, and especially in the southern nations. That said, where my site is a wonderful site, it has water. It's absolutely gorgeous once you get away from the very center of town. I just marvel every time I'm more than a quarter of a kilometer outside of town at how beautiful it really is. So I'm happy, and I'm happy that I'm there. And I'm having a lot of fun with the students, and it's challenging, but I'm glad that I did this.
Awesome, very cool. Thanks for that, Cecelia. So we are running a bit short on time, but we probably have time for one quick question. Suzanne, do you have a question you'd like to ask of Cecelia?
I was wondering about the weather. What's the temperature and how much sleep do you get?
Oh, I sleep well. And the temperature is, everyone thinks that East Africa is hot and humid. And had I not traveled there before, would have thought the same thing. But I'm at about 6,500 feet elevation. And it's tropical rainforest, except that it's not only because the amount of rainfall it gets. But it's like 50 degrees at night, and maybe, I think it's been averaging 25 to 27 Celsius. So that's around 80 to 85 degrees right now in the dry season of the year. The locals think it's hot, but I think it's really very pleasant. Now, come rainy season, the temperature will be similar, maybe a little bit cooler, but it will rain as much in a day there as the Bay Area gets in a week. I'm sorry, in a year. In a year, it can rain 15 inches of rain a day in that area. And I have little videos to prove it. But otherwise, the weather is perfect.
Thanks, Cecelia. So I think Rushton has a quick question. Go ahead, Rushton.
Sure. So quick thought. I'm going to show this this recording to the high school boys that I work with at the boys' high school. And maybe you've got like this piece of advice for them, right? Just something where like teenage boys in America, here's a good thought for you. Bring it on.
Be happy with what you have. The teenage years are hard. I'm older, but I certainly remember mine. And make the most of it while you can. Take advantage of the educational opportunities that you have, because if you lived in a place like rural Ethiopia and others much like it, you would not have nearly the opportunity to do what you can do here.
Cool. Well said. With that, let's try and wrap things up over here. And those of us on the call, we can remain on and chat with Cecelia and ask her some more questions. So thank you everyone for joining us this week. Please remember to fill out the attendance survey further down in this page. Also, please ask your questions of Cecelia or leave a comment in the discuss section at the very bottom of the page. And thanks again for joining us this week. I'll turn it back to Cecelia for her final words.
Well, I think I pretty much just said the final words, the message that I would give the boys in high school and girls as well. I nearly had a meltdown when I realized that these kids, as good as some of them are, probably do not have a chance at even a higher level education. But I'm going to do everything I can to make that happen, including starting a club that will be I want to go to university club in my school, and really giving those kids intensive learning at least in English, and hopefully it will carry over to everything else. So that's all.
Thanks so much, Cecelia.